The Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDIMA, is celebrating its 20th anniversary. To this end, its Executive Director Jeremy Cullimore has lauded its regional and international partners for their support over the past years at a ceremony marking the occasion at the Accra Beach Hotel. SEDIMA is celebrating the occasion under the theme Introspection, Reflection and Moving Forward. Mr. Cullimore says he's heartened that national disaster organizations now take their work very seriously.
All of the national disaster organizations, the SEDIMA system now have full-time staff. That's a major achievement, given where we started. They all have dedicated facilities, and we want to recognize the work of USAID, OFTA, and Southcom in supporting that particular facilities. Work plans development, growing private sector involvement, often ignored but very critical. At the regional level, I refer to the response architecture, the strategic framework for coordination and collaboration, a range of product standards and tools to guide this dialogue and the cooperation process, the interfacing at the political level through the CARICOM system.
Mr. Cullimore says the road has not been easy, with high turnovers in several national organizations and many challenges to overcome. But he believes that SEDIMA has risen to the task, giving invaluable service to the Caribbean and its people.
There was, at the beginning of this exercise, an underappreciation of hazard risks in development. I would say that there is a more awareness of the recognition, but how that is translated into knowledge and policy is still an area of debate. It is uneven in application in the community, even as we speak to our vulnerability. The second point relates to the question of the human dimension and the capacity. There was a low profiling of disaster management practice and professionals. We were happy that our council agreed to minimum standards for the appointment of heads of these offices and some standards for these organizations.
The minimum wages paid to domestic workers and security guards in Grenada are being increased. News of this from Labour Minister Glenys Roberts. The announcement follows the receipt of a report from a wages advisory committee that included representatives from the Grenada Trades Union Council and the Grenada Employers Federation. On the recommendation of that committee, the monthly pay for domestic workers nationwide will move to $750. The minimum wage for a security guard will increase from $4 an hour to $8. Well, while the World Health Organization is reporting that tobacco consumption is killing over 5 million people annually, Cuba has announced its first therapeutic vaccine against lung cancer. This is one of the most frequent types of the diseases at the world level and the one with highest prevalence among smokers. Successful clinical tests have proven the effectiveness of this medication, which will be commercialized on the island. The Cuban vaccine cannot prevent the disease, but considerably improves the state of patients with advanced cancer. The medication turns advanced cancer into a controllable chronic disease, since it generates antibodies against proteins that cause uncontrolled cell proliferation.
Next on the CBC Evening News, the Business Report, brought to you by Sagicor General. Wise financial thinking for life.
Kent is off tonight. Attention must be paid to the unethical practices and behavior of local small and medium-sized enterprises. And Minister of Industry, Small Business and Rural Development, Dennis Kelman, says the current recession presents the opportunity to pay attention to standards. He was speaking during the launch of a business ethics program for small and medium-sized enterprises at the UE Cayfield School of Business in association with the Inter-American Investment Corporation. Mr. Kelman says no organization should be allowed to profit from unethical behavior in Barbados.
Accusations of corruption, fraud, bribery impact a country's ability to attract foreign investment and may lead to scrutiny by those watchdog agencies set up for such purposes. Any tool that will serve to guide the process must therefore be welcome, and the program to be launched today is one such tool. 1 hour must be trained in the use of the tool and must be careful of those who seek to protect market share.
Mr. Kelman says once good business ethics are established, companies will benefit significantly.
It increases profits as more customers are attracted to do business with the company. It attracts quality employees as individuals seek to work with organizations, and it's easier to attract credit. Unethical behavior ruins the reputations of businesses in the marketplace and can even lead to closure. When viewed in the context of small economies like Barbados, the issue takes on even more significance. This is further underscored when it is realized that the business sector is made up primarily of small and medium-sized enterprises.
And the Barbados Private Sector Association says there is an urgent need for integrity legislation on the island. President John Williams says with the introduction of the Prevention of Corruption Bill 2010, integrity laws are now a priority for the business sector.
The rationale and reasoning which underpins integrity legislation is sound. It is important that all in society understand and appreciate that the highest standard of ethical behavior must be maintained by persons who accept to conduct the public's business. Whilst not advocating any attempt to regulate the integrity of individuals in a manner that be regarded as excessive, the Barbados Private Sector Association believes that any perceived difficulties with the present bill must not detract from the passing of such legislation in a timely manner in Barbados. While Barbados can be proud of its ratings on the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, this must not be a contributor to a lack of action.
Mr. Williams says integrity legislation should not be confined to officials in the public sector and owners and directors in the private sector alone. He says it should be a requirement across all levels of both sectors, and codes of ethics should be established.
In other words, what we're talking about here today goes far beyond the narrow limits of our offices, or the offices we hold, and our business enterprises. The issue here is one where we must ask ourselves, what sort of country, and maybe I should say region, do we want to live in? What sort of country do we want to leave to our children? What sort of values do we want visitors and friends to experience and come to mind when they come to Barbados or hear its name mentioned? That is really what we're talking about.
As we go to break, here's a look at how the stocks performed locally and regionally. Well, there seems to be a new type of animal husbandry in Barbados, and as Lisa Lord explains, it involves an animal you would consider a pest.
Most people going into rearing animals tend to go after your regular types like chickens, pigs, sheep, etc. But not Ron Eastman. He's gone a completely different route. And when I say different, I mean different. Yes, he is raising mice, but not your typical kind. There are white mice, the kind he says you would find in a medical lab, and which he says are free from diseases like leptospirosis.
These are the same mice that you usually find the scientists use in the labs to dissect and probably find cure for human diseases and stuff like that, like cancer and all the cancerous cells that we find in humans and the cure for them kind of things. They use these mice to find the cure for those diseases.
A friend gave him a pair 2 years ago, and since then he has been captivated with the animal. He now has about 200 in his care, and that's no surprise as they can reproduce every 28 days. Eastman says he is willing to turn what is now a hobby into a business by offering his mice for research purposes.
To come together with any of the labs in Barbados, any of the schools for science projects, the University of West Indies for the Faculty of Science, anyone interested in dealing with the mice to get further education, like for the students and things, practicals, and doing practicals in the science labs. I have a variety of mice here that is at hand.
He admits that he is very attached to the mice, sometimes spending hours just sitting and looking at them.
And they know when they come in to feed them, everybody stands up on the 2 foot and they're looking, because they know it's feeding time, and I spend good quality time around them too every day.
And as for their maintenance, Eastman says they are not expensive to keep as he feeds them just about anything.
They give them like groiner, beer feed, layer, corn kernels, raw nuts, cheese, biscuits, bread, you know, any little treat. Some days they give them just corn kernels for a little snack. Another day they raw nuts. Some days they get a little cheese. You know, you interchange the feeding so they're going to be accustomed to one set of feeding.
So what might be a pet or pest to some might actually be a lucrative business for others. Lisa Lord, CBC News.
A very good evening to all, and we recorded partly cloudy to cloudy skies, at least for the overnight and for the first part of the day. Thereafter, we had a bit of sunshine, but the instability levels are still about moderate and some shower activity expected. But in terms of the temperature, take a look. The maximum temperature got up to 31.2 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature, 24.1. At 6 o'clock, we had fair skies at the airport. The temperature was still rather warm, 29.2. The humidity stood at 71%, and the winds were coming out of the east at 11 kilometers per hour. Things about getting back to normal. But in the eastern Atlantic, there's quite a bit of activity. We have Barbados and the island chain around here. Just off the African coast is a tropical wave, and that wave has advanced to around 22 degrees west. A fair amount of activity associated with this wave at this time, but we'll continue to monitor this. But of most importance, tropical depression number 14. Now, this formed out an area of low pressure that was moving towards the region yesterday. At 5 this evening, it was in the vicinity of 11.8 degrees north, 37 degrees west, some 1,650 miles to the east of the Lesser Antilles, presently moving to the west-northwest at about 16 miles per hour, maximum sustained winds of 35 miles per hour, and the environment looks quite conducive to the development of this system into the next tropical wave. But of course, we're going to be keeping you posted on the development of that system. Closer to home, we had a low-level trough moving across the region. Let's put the cloud in motion. A low-level trough moving across the region last night, still feeling the effects of that low-level trough. Following closely on that is a tropical wave. The axis is presently along 55, 56 degrees west. Later tonight into tomorrow, the leading edge of that tropical wave is going to be pushing into the area. As a result, we're going to be looking at cloudy skies and scattered showers. But to the north of the area, Hurricane Katia. And at 5 o'clock, the center of this system was in the vicinity of 27.6 degrees north, 66.7 degrees west, under 340 miles to the southwest of Bermuda. It is presently moving to the northwest at about 9 miles per hour. The winds have dropped off to about 105 miles per hour, but as I indicated last night, Bermuda is going to be on the bad side of this system, presently generating some huge swells along the eastern seaboard and approaching Bermuda, and that system could have serious implications for Bermuda. And welcome back, and with the effects of the low-level trough still being felt in the island chain, the additional moisture being brought in from the tropical wave could have implications for tomorrow's weather. Here in the south would be seeing fair to partly cloudy skies, some scattered shower activity, but most of the heavy instability is going to be over the northern portion of the island chain. But nevertheless, prepare for some scattered shower activity tonight and into tomorrow. Take a look at our prediction for we're going to be looking at Wednesday into Saturday. Cloudy skies and scattered showers expected. Still going to be able to see some sunshine. Thursday, there's going to be a marginal drying out, and of course, that tropical depression, that is going to be approaching the region sometime towards the weekend, and we're going to be bearing that in mind, expecting increasing moisture and scattered showers, but we're going to be keeping you fully informed on the movement and the development of that system. Sunrise tomorrow, 5:47. Sunset will be at 5 minutes after 6. The first high tide, only one high tide, 18 minutes after 1 in the p.m. The first low tide is going to be at 6:34 in the morning. The second is going to be at 26 minutes after 6 in the evening. And the seas have dropped back down now to quite normal proportions, slight to moderate in open water, just peaking at 2 meters. The winds across the region, easterly to east-southeasterly, 15 to 30 kilometers per hour. The outlook for us in Barbados tonight and tomorrow, fair to partly cloudy with brief isolated showers, and come tomorrow, fair to occasionally cloudy with some scattered showers.